Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Oh, I got to stand there. I didn't rehearse. Oh, thank you, David. I could have brought that over. Well, again, good evening, everyone. Let us pray. Dear God, thank you for these days of autumn that have been refreshing and beautiful, of sunlight, colors bouncing off the wonder of your creation before us. Bless us in this season of harvest. Bless all the members, our sisters and brothers of the Church of Transfiguration. Thank you for stewardship and a sense of love for our ministry, our mission, among one another, the people beyond our doors. Open our minds and hearts this evening as we go forth with each other and looking at the goodness and blessings of our home family. Amen.
Well, thank you, Rob, and thanks for everyone who is here this evening, both here in person and those streaming. Your presence is very important to us, so thanks for your participation. As a matter of introduction, my name is David Pritchard, and I've been a member of Transfiguration along with my wife, Robin. It's coming up on 5 years, and just a wonderful community, and also the community at Siena. Oh, sure. Is that better? Okay, great. Oh, that's true. Is that a little bit better? Ooh, yes, that's great. Okay. Sue, I feel like singing all of a sudden, right? But in any event, as I had mentioned, my name is David Pritchard, and my wife Robin and I have been members of this community for just about 5 years, and we love it, and also love St. Catherine's down the road as well. So I am the new finance chair for the Finance Council at Transfiguration. I was just asked to step into that role in September of this year. And I want to give a big shout out to Denise Nunziato. I'm following Denise, and she left the transition in a very good place, so I wanted to thank you publicly for that. Thank you, Denise. So before we move on with our session, I'd like to introduce Rebecca Hartman. She is the Parish Council Chair, and as you know, we have a joint Parish Council between the two communities. So Rebecca, if you'd like to welcome.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you to all of you for being here and all of you watching online. We really appreciate your engagement with the parish and with this community. As he said, my name is Rebecca Hartman, and I am this year's chair of our pastoral council. So I'm here to represent your voice to the diocese, to the church, and to the community at large. So I want to invite you to come find me anytime. Come talk to me. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to meet new people and learn what I can about how to make this community better. So thank you for your time and, like I said, your commitment to this parish. There's a few other people, at least one, who are here tonight. Do you want to introduce yourself or no? Okay, fair enough. But we'll all be around. Those of you who were able to attend the coffee hour this week had a chance to meet some of us. We do appear at both parishes, and we'll try to make ourselves as visible as possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I know that we have some members of our Finance Council here as well, so thanks for your participation. So the purpose tonight, quite honestly, is to give you a financial update and the state of the business, if you will, financial update for the Church of the Transfiguration. And we're in a much better situation today than we were the last time we met. And the reason that we're in a much better situation is really twofold. Number one, the stewardship of this community, and then also a good cost control. So the combination of those two is why we have a good report to share with you tonight. So the agenda is very simple. We're going to provide a financial update, and then we're going to move into a Q&A session. And during that Q&A session, we'll have the mic available. That's so that everyone can hear here in this church, then also from those attending in our live streaming. All right, so with that, I'd like to hand it over to Dan to walk through a couple of financial statements.
All right. Thanks, David. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. So yeah, it feels much better standing up here today than it did a year ago. I will say that for sure. So I'm going to draw your attention to this bottom line right here, $91,630. That was our bottom line surplus for last fiscal year. And reminder, our fiscal year ends June 30th, goes July 1st to June 30th. So we finished the year very well. Last year we had a significant deficit. So when you combine the swing, it was about a $160,000 swing. So that's really good. And like David said, it really came down to two major things. Our giving was over budget by about, our regular offerings by about $43,000. Total revenue was about $55,000 over what we had budgeted. And our expenses were about $32,000 under. And just to note too that when we create the budget, we're always planning for the worst and hoping for the best. And this is one of those cases where we did plan for the worst, but the best worked out. And a big reason for the surplus in the big reason our expenses were under budget was right here, these two numbers. The utilities were significantly less than we had budgeted. Some of that is due to the fact that we had a mild winter. And then our repairs and maintenance were much lower than we had anticipated. And again, a lot of that had to do with the fact there was a mild, a mild winter. And we were fortunate that there were not a lot of unplanned repairs needed. And then, as David said, we just some general tightening up on anything we could throughout the year. If you look at down here, this is our, all this above this dark black line is our operating budget, our operating revenue and expense, and then non-operating. Non-operating revenue is basically anything that comes in from our investment funds. And overall it was a decent year, about $96,000 in interest and dividends, and we had about $34,000 in expenses, and that was mostly from the painting that was done outside. A small amount that was investment fees, and then we had a fee for our ERTC application. ERTC is the Employee Retention Tax Credit. So we had to pay the filing fees and pay the accountant that worked on that. But you'll see in a few slides, it will pay off. So our bottom line, if you look at that, was $154,000 surplus. And that's really good. So our regular, I talked about this. Regular offerings had increased by almost 5% year over year. Overall revenue by about 8%. And then, as I said, we were about $35,000 under in buildings and grounds. So now looking at this year's budget. So I took 2 years of actuals. So this was this past year, which we just spoke about, this middle column. And then I used the actuals from the year before. And then this is the budget that we developed back in May. So we did increase giving. We stuck kind of with that trend and increased it by 5.8% for regular collections. And our overall revenue, we increased by 4.7%. We think that's still pretty safe, given what has happened over the last couple of years. On the expense side, our biggest jump was here in the salaries, benefits, and outsourcing. There was a 22% increase there. That was a number of factors combined. There was a 4% cost of living increase for staff. That's per the diocese. Some staff instead receive a New York State mandated increase. The other good news, and I'm really happy about this, is we are, starting November 1st, we'll have a facilities manager here. So there used to be 2 facilities gentlemen. During COVID, I think there was none, and then Chris came back for a while. He retired, and then Bob Marmot and Clyde Cutter have done a fantastic job over the last, I guess, 2 years since I've been here. But we are looking into the future, so we've hired a full-time facilities manager. This person will be shared, actually, between 3 parishes, but 60-ish% of his time, about 3 days out of a week, he'll be here at Transfig. The rest will be shared with St. Catherine's and a 3rd parish, St. Peter's. But the exciting thing is he can do anything. He can do it all. He can swing the hammer. He can create the spreadsheets and the schedules that we need. He can work with the vendors on getting bids and helping us produce the 5-year capital budgets that we need and things like that. The insurance, which is billed by the diocese, did go up 6%. The school assessment actually went down by close to 6%, though I do anticipate that will begin to go back up next year. And some of these formulas are based on rolling averages, so that, if you look back over the last 3 or 4 years, right, things were going down in terms of attendance and collections and things like that. But as they are rebounding, the year or 2 following, those numbers will start to go back up. And the rest is, we either split the differences or we did some zero-based budgeting and meeting with the various staff to come up with those numbers. We were told to also increase a 31% increase in gas supply and a 25% increase in electric supply. Now, we were told that the year before as well, and it wasn't as bad as we thought, so I'm hoping that's the case again. But we built in a small little surplus, but our goal, our hope, is that we still have a bigger surplus than that. Now, we did, you might notice on the campus, over the last few months, we did a lot of work. We brought in a landscaping company because things were looking pretty rough. So we have loosened up a little bit, spent a little bit more, but on things that we've had to. But I still believe we'll have a good year. And so now just taking a look, this is as of June 30th. Again, what we just looked at was what happens over a 12-month period, what comes in and what goes out over a 12-month period. The balance sheet, simply looks at our total money. How much money do we have? What's in the bank as of June 30th? So I'm going to again jump to the bottom. Our net assets grew 13.5% from June 30th of 2023 to this past June. And that's good. That's what we want. And there's a youth fund that's being moved from one account to the other, so that's why I kind of threw off our unrestricted numbers. So I'm not going to get into too much detail on those, but the unrestricted, if you did the math, the unrestricted income still grew by about roughly $100,000, and that's great. And again, that's to the great generosity of everyone and the savings that we saw on the expense side. The ERTC that I mentioned, we should be receiving $38,000. And that's, as some people say, free money. That's like the PPP loans that were forgiven. It's the continuation of that legislation, is how I like to sum it up. We may not see it until as late as February of 2025, but that's great. That'll help build the fund back up. So just a brief mention about CMA. Again, thank you to everybody, because last year we met our goal, and that was fantastic. We exceeded it by a percentage point. So our goal was 186, and everybody here donated to close to 189,000. So we had a small surplus. This year, as of today, and so a couple of things are. Yes, so our goal has increased to 192,000. Now last year at this time, we were at 71. This year we're at 61. And we were at 38% of our total goal. Today we're at 32% of our goal. But this is the encouraging thing. If you look at this number down here, we only had 114 donors as of this time. This year we have 131. And that's really important. And statistically, those that, it's kind of obvious, right? But the higher the participation, the more likely you're to reach your goal. And I believe it's 30% is what the diocese says. If you get 30% participation, everybody meets their goal. And I think part of the reason this number's lower is just because if I look back at who gave this year and who gave last year at this time, there's a handful of folks that haven't given yet. If we were to factor those in, we'd probably be at or above that goal. So I'm not, this isn't troubling news by any means. But we'll keep, I think there's a speaker this weekend. Nancy's been doing some great work communicating it. And Rich DeMarco and Bob Leonard have been playing a hand in that as well. And of course, Father Rob and Father Mike speaking from the pulpit. So I'm confident we'll meet our goal again this year as well. And I didn't have it in the slide, but just a couple quick staff updates too. Nancy, so Vicki, you probably saw in the bulletin, Vicki, we're happy for her. She got a job closer to home in Syracuse. She was commuting here every day. And so Nancy Wall has taken over as the communications director. And we're thankful for that, to keep that process going. Because when we started that position, the whole reason was because you had a lot of staff and even volunteers trying to do communications on their own. And it was often just very disjointed. So that was one thing that was really positive about what Vicki did, is bringing all that, streamlining it. And Nancy has done a very good job of continuing that and bringing her own things to the table. I mentioned the facilities person who will start soon. It's Ben Cutter. I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. Ben Cutter, who's a parishioner here, and we're really excited about having him on board. And we have a new bookkeeper, new business manager, I should say, that started today. So you'll hopefully meet her in the coming weeks and months. There's a new secretary at St. Catherine. If you're down there, Shauna seems is doing a very good job so far. So we're excited about some of these changes, and yeah, looking forward to everybody meeting each other. So. And Jeff, yes, thank you. Jeff Beckett, who is a parishioner at St. Catherine. He's been helping them for several years now with streaming and some sound and things like that. And he's now also part of the Transfig staff, who's helping with the streaming tonight. We will be doing a new sound system, a mixing board and things like that. A lot of people have commented that they've noticed the difference at St. Catherine's when we did that. We're going to model that up here as well. So thanks for setting this up, everybody. And also a shout out to a couple folks that came to mind today. Marcy Bold and Kathy Kihos, and now Laura Cutter, folks that are helping out in the office while Meg is out for a few weeks taking care of herself. So. Okay, I guess we'll open it up to questions. Daryl.
Relative to the CM.
It'll help, yeah, wait for the mic, because then the people streaming can hear it too.
Yeah, relative to the CMA, and I think there's 131 at this point in time. What's the, I'll say, enrollment or the Transfiguration number of parishioners now relative to last year? Any idea?
Yeah, so, certainly some members have moved on for various reasons, but I know we've had a number of new folks signing, new parishioners. I don't know if Karen or Ann maybe want to speak about that a little bit. I couldn't give you the total number right now, but I can get back to you on that, Daryl, unless another staff member here.
1,400 active parishioners and active households in Parasol.
Okay. Yeah, so there's 14 active households. I'm sorry, what did I say? 14. Small parish, right? 1,400 registered.
Registered active, yes.
Active in our database. Now we know that number is probably not the truly active numbers are much smaller, but we are actually going through the census right now. We did it here recently, and the point of the census right now is to get accurate information on those folks that are already active, because a lot of you out here might have phone numbers that no longer work because you don't have a landline anymore, or you don't have your AOL account anymore, and if you do, I apologize, but your email has changed for whatever reason, right? So that's our priority, is to get that information updated so we can effectively communicate. And then I believe the diocese will be looking in the next stage or two to get after those other numbers that maybe have moved on for various reasons. Behind you, and then we'll come back, yeah.
Hi, I just wondered with the online giving on the website, is there any way, I don't know anything about websites, but I don't find it user-friendly in terms of, there's nowhere to leave comments. So it's got the online giving, but if I want to designate a mass or I want to donate for a deceased, member that's asked for donations. So is that something that could be changed to make the
Yes,
website?
and it will be. And I've been saying this for a while, and maybe this is one of my weaknesses. I want to make the change all at once, and we're actually going to update both websites. We're going to have a shared website, and that's, again, just making things streamlined, less resources. There will still be both churches identified on there, but we'll have one website, one giving platform, which will make it a lot simpler on the back end. When we do that process, we will figure out all the different things that we can give for and make it much more user-friendly. Vicki did a fantastic job of researching a number of platforms that we could potentially use. So once, in my mind, we've got some staff settled, then we can put some attention to that.
Dan, I got a question, not Transfigure specific, but since we're part of the diocese, what's the status of the lawsuit that seems to be never ending?
The bankruptcy, sure. So, and we'll share with you an article from the Rochester Beacon. You could probably even Google that tonight, but Nancy will put that in the emails. And they do a pretty good job of summarizing everything, but I'm going to give you my understanding. So some good news is there was a pending lawsuit, CNB, am I saying it right? CNA. It's the largest of the insurance carriers that has not settled yet. And they then sued us, the diocese, for breach of contract, which was ridiculous, and because it's not us that's not preventing this from going forward. Thankfully, the judge either dismissed it or ruled in our favor. So that's behind us. That's good news. Unfortunately, you might be familiar with the Purdue Pharma case that went to the Supreme Court. But because of the ruling on that case, it impacted the channeling injunction. The channeling injunction that's good. We want the channeling injunction. That means that once everything is settled, nobody could come bring another claim against the church. In other words, it's like the individual church's insurance policy. Well, now as a result of this case with the Supreme Court, the Purdue Pharma, in order for that channeling injunction to be effective, every person that is suing would have to agree to it. And you're talking, I think there's over 400 people, close to 500. Just the logistics of going through that would be daunting, not to mention the fact that probably not all of them would. So our judge is, my understanding, he's not ruling. He's sent it back to mediation. There's 2 new mediators. There's also 2 cases pending, one in Syracuse, I believe, and one in Rockford Center, where they're taking a couple different approaches. And so it's possible they're waiting to see how those are ruled on before anything else happens. So unfortunately, it hasn't really moved much further. Daryl, yeah.
Has the interest rates affected, let's say, last year's planning versus this year's planning? Interest rates, earnings.
Affected what, Daryl? Our funds?
Has the interest rates affected the earnings estimates for last year and going forward than this coming year?
Sure.
They are going down, so that I've seen. Interest rates and savings accounts and stuff like that.
Bob, would you care to comment on that? Or probably answer it better than I could.
Yeah, I didn't quite get the whole question.
Yeah, how will the interest rates impact our investments?
Well, there's a couple aspects to that. A fairly significant portion of our investments are in the stock market. The diocese has a fund called Communis, and all parishes aggregate their money in the Communis fund. It's run by a local investment company called Alesco. So much of our investment return is directly related to how the stock market performs. Now, this year we did have some excess cash that we didn't want to invest in the market, and we have been working on getting that into some money markets that would provide a better return than the cash was provided. So we should be able to get about 4% on the cash, and the rest of the investments will perform consistent with a diversified portfolio in the stock market.
Anyone else? Any online comments, Paul, or questions? No? Stable patrimony is the canon term for long-term investments, long-term savings. So, is that, and it's probably listed on our balance sheet too, that when you see that on our balance sheet, that's our unrestricted savings, basically. Kathy.
Are those savings such that can be used for anything, or are they specific?
Can you say that again?
I think I'm
Well, the streaming can hear it.
Oh, I just wondered if the savings, the stable patrimony, was designated for things or could be used for anything, or are there restrictions on it?
Yeah, so the short answer is it's unrestricted and it can be used for anything, but there are diocesan policies in place that we'd have to get certain permission on certain things, like a building project, for example. And in everything over, a certain dollar amount, we vet with the finance council and obviously the pastor. All right, well, if that's it, we'll conclude. Yeah, and we'll be here with questions. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to the office, send an email, etc. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Thanks for watching online. And again, thanks for your generosity. Have a good night.